Quality is nothing but doing things right the first time in the most efficient manner uh, in the fastest possible time. If you go to actually skill or do a skill test of these people and check, and if you just look at the skilling numbers and do a trade test, you will realize that this shortage then goes right up to 40 to 50%. So for me, quality is a mindset. Of calling it cost of poor quality, I call it profit opportunity through quality improvement. So converting COPQ to POQI. What about the migratory population who keeps moving now and then? But how many of us have actually, calculated the cost of brand value erosion, the cost of having a lesser net promoter score, the time taken for an organization to do damage control and recover from a disaster which is publicly telecast?
CQRA. Quality never costs, it pays.
I welcome our listeners to CQRA Podcasts. This is Shruti Hussain, Executive Editor at CQRA Content and Media. Our guest today is Mr. Alcide Coelho. He's the Senior Vice President, Quality Management and Innovation at Kalpataru Limited at Mumbai. A little brief introduction, a biography of Mr. Coelho. Mr. Alcide Coelho is a graduate of the prestigious Harvard Business School Advanced Management Program with over 20 years' experience in managing real estate projects in India, the Middle East, and South Asia, with cross functional expertise in quality management, innovation, international business operations, and strategy. He's a civil engineer from VJTI Mumbai, and Mr. Alcide is also a certified project management professional, a lead auditor, and a gold medalist for the Tata Business Excellence Model. Amongst his various accolades, he has been a recipient of the Golden Peacock National Quality Award, Ramakrishna Bajaj National Quality Award, and has been ranked as the top 50 most valued quality professionals by the World Quality Congress. Mr. Coelho, these are all inspiring credentials. Welcome to CQRA Podcasts.
Thank you so much, Shruti, for having me over here. This is an excellent initiative, and I'm sure it'll go a long way in helping us all reach our aim of, having a top-class construction industry, which is amongst the best in the world.
Thank you so much for your kind words. To begin with, I want to ask you this question. Whenever I am going around in the city or anybody, any of our listeners, if you take a look around, the whole city seems like a construction site. There is a building frenzy in any city of the country. So, has this incessant building given any fillip to the quality aspect in construction? Are developers of residential and commercial buildings more likely now to pay attention to the quality standards of their projects than they did a few years ago? What are your observations?
Right. So this is Shruti like a double-edged sword, and I'll answer this question in two parts. So yes, definitely there is a very, very important focus on quality, on doing right the first time, on completing projects the first, on time as promised. And there are various things that are put in place by the government to ensure that this happens. Uh, However, there is also another wave of, yeah, which is another aspect wherein consumers have increasingly got educated in terms of their rights and what needs to be done, and whether the developer is giving them what has been promised or not. So that kind of pressure as well. Now, while that happens on the consumer front, there is also a challenge on the side of the developers, because as the construction activity increases, although we are amongst the most populous nations on the planet today, the skills that exist in the country are far from what would be required. And we'll discuss this more in detail. But a case in point would be most consumers of real estate would look at as an example, the finished quality product before they were to take over the apartment.
Right.
How many of the civil engineers in the country have even gone through one subject on finishing? We would have done material engineering, but in that there is no finishing material. How many people have studied marble as a subject? How many people have studied wood as a subject? There are no subjects. So
Yes. Yes.
anybody and everybody who has actually done finishing has either done it by experience or by learning on the job. So this is akin to, we often complain of the conditions, driving conditions in our country, right? And with the honking and all. And many people who have traveled abroad would compare the way we drive here in Mumbai, let's say, or in India, to a place like Dubai or Singapore. But we never realize that in Dubai or Singapore, a person has taken about a year or so to get his license, and they have been explained the different rules and regulations, and getting a license is equivalent to getting a degree. While in
True.
India, even today, it barely takes 15 minutes to pass a test, and you would most often than not get your license, even probably just sitting at home through an agent. Now, unless this changes, and we take the same comparison within the construction industry, where we have specialized subjects focused on finishing and an industry academia collaboration, we are expecting someone who has never gone to a five-star, a workman, uh, to deliver a five-star quality product. How would that even be conceivable? And hence the emphasis on skill development and so many other things, which I think some of your other questions would cover later on.
Yes, that's right. And there was a very valid point made, in fact, about skills and professionals. Like you said, that the skill levels are far removed from what is required. And that was something I think I want to talk about right now, because this keeps coming up in many conversations, with different people across the board. This is an area where organizations have to really use a lot of elbow grease in, the form of training programs and developing skilling tools for this purpose. And you have also been involved in a big way, I believe, in this vertical. You've created films, visual aids, standard operating procedures, etc. So tell us a little more about this. That do you think the academia is not skilling construction professionals enough, and now the onus is, it falls on the industry to fill this gap?
Yes, that's absolutely right. In just the last 10 years or so, during my stay in India, I have been involved in skilling over 2 lakh, uh, if you want to call it, tradesmen, workmen across different levels, be it, semi-skilled, unskilled, supervisory staff. And I think a lot more needs to be done, because the way that skilling, and unfortunately, this is a mindset, right? We did a study which gave us some very um, startling data. And one of them was that, why are the contractors not willing to skill? The simple answer to that is because an average workman stays on a construction site for not more than 90 days. And if, for example, today I am staying on a site for 90 days and then I'm moving to another site because somebody's paying me 100 rupees more, what is my incentive for actually skilling a person who's not going to be there beyond 90 days? So I think the way we need to look at skilling itself and our motivation for skilling needs to change. We should not be looking at skilling as how this will only benefit us, but rather than that, we should be looking at developing and skilling the ecosystem. So no matter where this person is, he's still skilled. And like the ecosystem, whatever goes up will come down, and sooner or later we will benefit of it. That's one. The second, what I feel needs to be done is that there needs to be increase impetus on industry academia collaboration. And now what I mean by this is, let's say an average professor at Harvard Business School, uh, by mandate, is required to spend 50% of his time in industry. If not, he's not
Okay,
qualified to teach at Harvard, right?
that makes
Now,
sense.
many of our institutions today are kind of cut off from what's happening in the industry. Now, if we were to have this industry academia collaboration, automatically there will be a flow of thoughts from either side. Um, there is a lot of talent in academia. We have some of the best institutions that exist today. But how are these really catering to what is the need of the hour on the ground? How is that translating into skills that are needed in order to complete a construction project across the life cycle, be it a residential, be it commercial, be it an infra project? Um, Today, on an average, although we have so much of manpower all around, yet most projects across the country are running with a shortage of 20 to 25% if you check their peak labor histogram in terms of what is actually required vis-a-vis the headcount that is on the projects. Now, this is only the headcount. If you go to actually skill or do a skill test of these people and check how many, let's say, skilled carpenters are required on a particular project to complete it, how many skilled fitters are required, how many skilled masons are required. And if you just look at the skilling numbers and do a trade test, you will realize that this shortage then goes right up to 40 to 50%. And if we are having a shortage of the right skilled people of 40 to 50% on our projects, how do we expect these projects to complete on time within the given cost? So coming back to the question is that we need to understand that there needs to be a focus on this particular aspect. We need to make sure that every single person, for example, the contractor needs to understand that if he does the right, if he has the right workmen on site, he will be able to make do with fewer workmen, with higher productivity, with lesser rework. All this then again ties down to the cost that we spend on a project and how long does it take for a project to complete, his reputation in the market. And likewise for a developer, if a developer does not ensure that his contractor working on his project succeeds, there is no way a developer can succeed without the partners involved in the project succeeding. And oftentimes it is seen that a developer is trying to squeeze the contractor and the contractor is trying to squeeze the developer, and there is a kind of game going on between the two, both not realizing that both are losing. So this can't be a you win, I lose, or I win, you lose. It has to be a win-win, you win, I win situation.
That's really well put. And I believe also skilled workers is equal to better quality in construction as well. Going ahead, you've said in the past that what India needs to go from a third world to a first world nation is completing major government infrastructure projects on time and within the right cost and right quality. So, from then to now, how have the standards progressed in major infrastructure projects like roads or metro rails or bridges?
Fantastic. So in terms of a context, let's understand that for the 2023-24 budget, roughly 3.3% of GDP or 10 lakh crore has been allotted for infra projects. Now, this is roughly three times the quantum of work that has been done in previous years. So it's by no means a small figure, right? Now, if we take the current context into account where we have a shortage of skilled workmen, and not just workmen, skills at every level, right from the head of a construction company to the workmen, then this becomes a very accentuated problem. Now, where we are currently with respect to where we were 5 years before, we are definitely far better placed in terms of all our big, huge projects are not done by a single organization today. These are consortiums. Most of them are funded by foreign funding agencies, which have very strict monitoring mechanisms and PMCs overlooking them. Yes, we do have issues such as land acquisition and local issues, which could be confined to different regions, depending on where the infrastructure project passes from. But if you
Okay.
look at the mechanism to have these projects completed on time, I think they are all in place. If you look at the support structure, which we discussed in our previous question, that really needs to be kind of raised up so that these so-called world-class technical skills that are being brought in the country today should be mated with the kind of infrastructure needed in terms of the workmen, the materials, and the transportation. And then once these two are coupled, that's when you'll have a synergy between the two, and most of these projects then would really be world class, complete on time. And we have come a long way in doing that, but I think there is still a long way to go as well.
All right. You right now spoke about all this, foreign technical world-class knowledge that is coming in, and we need to have a support structure to sort of, make use of all this information and expertise that we have. So next, I want to ask you about knowledge sharing. So the knowledge sharing in the quality management industry, I believe, is really important so that the entire industry as such benefits from it. And then the
Sure.
effect trickles down to the actual end users and also the state of the city or the state of the infrastructure. So, does this happen enough? And are there forums and common resources for, say, QA, QC professionals and companies to collaborate? Or are most players, the big players, operating in their own silos?
So there are a few forums in which people collaborate, but I think a very small percentage of the industry is part of that. And a lot of the collaboration that happens today is very, very unstructured. I also feel that a lot of organizations have fantastic, if I may say, centers of excellence within them, which produce really top-notch stuff, be it films, SOPs, visual aid manuals, a lot of which I have been instrumental and part of. But then
Okay.
very often people are reluctant to share these with another organization or with the ecosystem in general. I think what we really need to do is at the industry level, 4 or 5 big players coming together, sharing their common resources, and ensure that we try and develop the ecosystem in which we operate rather than our own companies. Because as I said, the workmen are migratory. At best, you can have people who are on your roles, sticking with you for a year, 2, 3 years, or whatever that is. But what about the migratory population who keeps moving now and then? The only way to deal is that at the industry level, you join hands and start developing the ecosystem so that this then sharing, be it films, SOPs, best practices, whatsoever, be shared across. So it is a kind of complementary thing. What are my strengths may not be yours, and what are your strengths may not be mine. But if I add all these strengths together, that certainly, creates it 1 plus 1 will not be 2 in that case. 1 plus 1 will be 3.
That's well said, sir. And Mr. Coelho, you have, the next things which I'm going to list out. I believe you've done all this in your career. For example, evaluation of new materials in the market, new construction techniques and technologies, and carrying out feasibility studies and prototyping prior to implementation of any new technology. These are all important aspects of research and development that you have been involved in. So I want to ask you that. How much are companies in India investing in this direction?
Also, I think this is a very big area of improvement for the construction industry because from whatever numbers I have, I think less than 1% is being invested on R&D today. And I think the root cause is not because people don't want to invest. It is mainly because of a mindset which is predominant. And that goes down to the fact that I have cheap labor. So let me give you a case in point. Let's say I ask a contractor to invest an X amount in a new technology, which will help him, do things faster, with higher productivity, save time and cost. He would evaluate that with the number of extra people he would actually have to deploy. So it's not really an apple to apple comparison. because the number of people he would actually deploy would once again be from the same pool of unskilled labor, whereas the technology or the automation that we are looking at would last him not just across this life cycle of this project, but across many life cycles of many projects, right? But the immediate comparison is that if I have to put down a lakh of rupees here, I'm getting that same thing done with labor of 10,000 rupees. So why should I invest? So I think there too, there needs to be a collaboration between the contractors, between the developers to say that, you know what, first of all, let's be aware of the cost that we are going to be spending if we don't do this. In some cases, it is not only about an option of should I do it or not, but it is if I don't do it, I will not survive. So that point needs to be clear. The second point is that once you get a taste of what automation, what technology can do for you, and the fact that whether we like it or not, we'll have to reduce our dependence on labor because as I said, at 25% shortage or from a skill point of view, 50% shortage, we can't continue like this. So once
Right.
that realization dawns and the developer and the contractor is willing to, co-develop these, co-invest in these, I think automatically the benefits also will be shared because like I said before, you can't squeeze a contractor or have a contractor not perform and the developer succeeds. It is imperative that for the developer to succeed, for the developer to be top notch, your contractor will have to also succeed and be top notch. So I think one of the things is, first of all, be aware of where we are, look at not just the initial investment cost, look at the life cycle cost, and see how there could be collaboration between the different vendors, between the different contractors and the developers, so that there is something for everyone in it.
I think this collaboration aspect keeps coming up. It's a really important thing to kind of take everyone along in a construction project. You cannot kind of leave out uh, the person at the lowest rung of the ladder and then just have big plans probably at the management level. Uh, Going ahead, tell us about some novel materials or homegrown methods that have been developed in the country as a result of, some successful R&D, and how has this enhanced quality in construction in India?
So I'll deal with this question in two aspects. One is that what are the homegrown technologies? Now, when we say homegrown, it doesn't mean that all of them originated in India, but we Indians are great in, acclimatizing stuff. One is that, and the second thing is that uh, what they call in the normal construction parlance as jugaad, right? To make sure
Right.
that a technology that is meant for one thing can be used for something which is totally different. Uh, and to that extent, we have a program within Kalpataru, and we have a complete Kaizen function, which so far has implemented over 200 Kaizens, and these are all small improvements done by the respective project teams in a system or process which has an impact on QCD, which is essentially quality, cost, or delivery. Now, who does these? These are done by the workmen, the supervisors actually working on a problem statement or a problem that they have faced, and they have found a better way to deal with it. So these Kaizens are then published across the organization and implemented. Now, I think most organizations can do this. It's very easy. It's basically if you have, let's say, a throughput of, let's say, 50,000 people, including workmen and partners in your organization, you're essentially tapping into the knowledge repository of all of these 50,000 and not dependent on a certain team or a certain technology department to implement technologies. That's one. Apart from that, there are many other technologies which are being used the world over. Many of them are developed by Indians themselves. So, as an example, you have, let's say, 5D BIM, wherein you know various aspects, including the costing of a project in real time as it happens. You have cameras to monitor these projects. They put in the data within the system. It is integrated with the planning. It is integrated with the design. It is integrated with not just the architectural and structural drawings, but also the services drawings, which are very, very important because there is often something called as clashing of services. So you do something called as clash detection, wherein you know before you have built that something or some service is going to clash with each other. So you get that out of the way. So it helps obstacles during construction and it smoothens the construction process. There's a lot of time saving in all of these. Apart from this, there are there are precast which have been being used for the last 20, 30 years, but increasingly precast could be used, not just for complete buildings. Of course, there is, I mean, there are technologies today where you 3D print a building, but maybe everybody can't afford that, and maybe it is not possible to do it everywhere. But many elements of the building can be done in precast before, be it balcony panels, be it staircases, be it so many things. Now, all of these technologies are very prevalent in India. Uh, they just need to be spread across. Today, they are a purview of only a few companies and few people who can afford the initial investment in order to have these plans. But again, as I said, if we look at the collaboration aspect of it, if 5 or 6 big players join hands and say, you know what, this precast plant will serve, let's say, 10 projects or 50 projects, automatically economies of scale kick in and the whole product then becomes cheaper. So my in my opinion, in order to make things happen, in order to make things cheaper, in order to make things accessible, we'll have to break these silos, collaborate even for things like big ticket technology items, introduce them in the country so that the entire ecosystem can benefit and be raised.
That's really well said. It was a very comprehensive overview of, what's happening in the industry right now. But in the future, how do you see the QA/QC industry shaping up, and what are the developments that end users should watch out for? And what are, other things that may happen that will benefit the end user as well as the developers and their industry?
So in my opinion, quality assurance and quality control is not a separate function to start with. And I think everybody needs to understand that. The world over, very major companies such as Toyota, and this has been documented in the 80s, wherein they had something called as Toyota quality management systems, wherein quality is nothing but doing things right the first time in the most efficient manner, uh, in the fastest possible time, right? So that is really quality. So whoever does a particular task needs to look at these aspects and look at how he's contributing towards the end user or the end state of that product or service for that matter. In terms of quality, I feel that quality, once again, uh, the paradigm itself will change in terms of today, many of the developers are looking at co-creation. They are inviting customers at design stage and asking them, please tell us what is it that you would want in this particular project if it is of a particular segment. That's one. The second thing would be that uh, quality is not going to be like a buzzword or a feel good thing that you need to have in order to show the world. It is more of an going to be an existential hygiene requirement where our standard, like for example, let's say you buy an Apple phone, you don't expect the buttons to not move or the finishing to have a scratch or something like that. You expect iPhone to be an iPhone, irrespective of whether it's made in China, Vietnam, in India, or or anywhere else in the world. And
Very true.
likewise, for a construction project, which wherein most people spend their lifelong earnings on it, and it's a dream that we are kind of selling. Uh, there is a lot of emotional energy and emotional attachment which goes towards that. And I think if all of us realize that it is a dream that we are giving to our customer. In case of infra, it is a legacy that we are leaving behind of ourselves to the country and the nation. It is the best version of ourselves that needs to go into this particular product. Automatically, the product will turn out good, and automatically, you'll see very, very large, developments today. uh, like for example, Kalpataru Parks. Likewise, so many other developers. The Voltas are world class. I'm sure the Dharavi redevelopment that is coming up is going to totally change the face of the city. So there is so much happening. And what we really need to understand is that irrespective of which function we are in, we need to contribute towards doing the right thing first time right and in the fastest and most efficient manner. And that for me would be quality.
Mr. Coelho, I wanted to know your take on RERA compliances, since RERA has really kind of been a game changer for the end users in the construction world, and how it safeguards consumers with respect to safety and timely possession of their properties that they put in their money for. And my second question was about the cost of poor quality in construction and how this affects the entire project and the life cycle of the project.
So first, let's talk about RERA. I think RERA has been a very, very good move, and right from, let's say 2018 onwards, it has had various iterations of it. Uh, but the fact that a developer has to fill in a form, it's called Form 2A for quality, which has to guarantee the workmanship and the materials that go into a product and upload it on a portal, in my opinion, increases transparency. Uh, that's one. The other aspect, which is basically how the consumer itself has now started getting more and more educated because of one is RERA, the other is multiple forums and groups. The strange thing is that even before we hand over a project today, uh, there is a consumer group of that particular, let's say, building or project, which is already on a WhatsApp group and things like that. And very often, it is the pressure exerted by these groups which makes things happen. Now, I'm not saying that the developers don't do what they are supposed to do. What I'm saying is that every single large developer is acutely aware, not just of RERA, which is like a Damocles sword hanging, but it is also the consumer himself. So it is not just the law, but the spirit of the law also, which gets implemented just because of this increase of awareness. And for me, I think that is really good, because then you are pushed to making sure things happen for the consumers, and by making sure you do things for the consumers in the best possible way, you are actually making sure you do things for yourself, because then you complete projects faster, the monetization cycle is faster, the quality is better, the reputational losses are lesser, and it's a win-win situation for everybody. So I think RERA combined with consumer awareness has been great for the industry. I think
All
your next
right. Yeah.
I think your next question was on cost of poor quality, right? So
Yes.
I I have in fact presented a paper at the American Society of Quality and won an award there on cost of poor quality. And I think it was not so much about the award, but it was uh, the uh, the realization that dawned upon us while doing this study. And the study was that, cost of poor quality, as they often call it,
Mm-hmm.
as we see, it is only the tip of the iceberg. Because what we really see is cost of rework, we see cost of rejection, we see sometimes delayed time. That's all that we see. But how many of us have actually, calculated the cost of brand value erosion, the cost of having a lesser net promoter score, the time taken for an organization to do damage control and recover from a disaster which is publicly telecast? These are intangibles, very, very difficult to fathom, and has such a large impact on a brand. It takes years of hard work to build a brand, and a single isolated incident like this could just crash its reputation. So I would therefore like to break the elephant in the room when it comes to COPQ. And we have actually done a project, and instead of calling it cost of poor quality, I call it profit opportunity through quality improvement. So converting COPQ to POQI is the term that I would like, because one is that profit opportunity to quality improvement has a very positive connotation. The moment you say you're going to calculate the COPQ of a department or a function or of a particular activity, people get into their shell and say, no, no, somebody's going to come and find out my faults. So the moment you say profit opportunity to quality improvement, and let's say a function saves, let's say, 5% of cost. And of this 5%, let's say 2% or 3% is plowed down as a employee incentive, and the rest 2 or 3% goes to the company bottom line. This again is a win-win situation. So rather than putting people in their shell, we need to start talking about profit opportunity through quality improvement, and how every function can contribute in getting better, more efficient, and thereby benefiting themselves. Because the question that is asked is, what's in it for me? First of all, nobody would want to find faults with themselves. And on top of that, if I'm going to be penalized for that, then I will never do it. But you change the paradigm and say that, you know what, you say 5%, I give 2.5, I keep 2.5. It automatically becomes a win-win situation again. And I think that's the way forward. So, for example, let's say if we sensitize a contractor and just do an exercise where we calculate the cost of rework, the cost of rejection, and the cost of the time delays, and we tell him that, you know what, Mr. Contractor, you are today working on a 6 to 8% margin, which is extremely stretched. By the time you finish the project, that margin goes down to 2% or 3%. What if I help you in saving about 4 to 5% of your cost, and that adds to your margin? He will jump at it. And likewise for a developer, if across the life cycle of a project, he's able to save 10%, and let's say he plows that 10%, 5% back to his bottom line, and 5%, by increasing the spec of his particular product, or reducing the sale price. Because the moment you have saved 10%, you need to do something with that 10%. Now, in either case, if I increase the spec, I'll be superior to the competition for the same category of product. If I reduce my price, I'll be giving the same category of product for a cheaper price. Once again, I become more competitive, which again translates into sales. So who wouldn't want that? I think the proposition needs to be made, and the proposition should not be cost of poor quality. It should be profit opportunity through quality improvement.
Mr. Coelho, what is your take on quality in construction, and how should people be made aware of the importance of quality?
So for me, quality is a mindset, and I can't overemphasize this. And the mindset begins with my own quality, the quality of my thoughts, the quality of my words, and the quality of my actions. If every day I strive to better myself by 1% in all these three aspects, it automatically translates into my work. And if I can increase and better my work every day by 1%, that makes it 365% a year. If all of us can do this and be the best version of ourselves with small improvements every day, wouldn't this really create magic? Not just for ourselves, for our organizations, for the industry. And who wouldn't want to have a person who is not just a quality person getting photographs removed and sending it to the management, but rather than being an agent of change, being like the salt in the food, or like the sugar in the tea, a catalyst for excellence, a catalyst for improvement, a catalyst to have an excellent business and a world-class product. I think everybody will want these people. So the main challenge that quality people face today is acceptance within their own teams first. And this sometimes becomes a challenge because the attitude is catch people doing wrong. Let's change this. Let's start and catch people doing right so that people want us more and more in their teams because they know that we will bring about change. And it is not only for the quality team. As I said in the beginning, quality should be everybody's business. Just target 1% improvement daily, and that's about it. We'll be more than world class. The best professors, the best technologists. The strange part is in Harvard, the previous dean, Nitin Noria, who was there for one of the longest serving deans of Harvard, 10 years, um, is an Indian. The dean after that, the current dean, Shrikant Dattar, who was also my professor, is an Indian. When we Indians can build world-class economies, work in world-class companies such as NASA, Tesla, Google, or Alphabet, why not build our own country? And what is preventing us from doing it except an environment which is conducive towards excellence and a mindset change? So I think really quality is all about mindset change. If we can do that, the same magic that Indians have worked across the world, being the largest diaspora of people who are NRIs, that same magic can be done in India. And I see that happening, at least with the current generation.
That's really well put. That's something that keeps coming up. That if Indians abroad in say foreign organizations are so successful, why can't they create the same magic here? And you know, to sort of be a world class country with world class systems as well.
I have one last question, Mr. Coelho, and this is about how to strike a balance between time and quality and how to enforce this on the ground. As you've mentioned, correctly earlier, that the site team looks at the person who is in charge of the quality to maintain the quality, but also afraid that, this process will hamper the progress part or the timely completion of the project. So, how to bridge this gap in an effective manner?
So in my mind, there is no dichotomy between quality, cost, and progress. If we do things right the first time in the most efficient manner, that by definition itself will be the cheapest way to achieve a particular target or a task. Because you're saving on rework, you're saving on rejection, you're saving on any losses within the system. And if you were to do a DFMEA of any project, you will realize that there are a million ways in which we lose, resources. And the only solution for that is plan your activity well in advance. Make sure you execute it to the T. You should have slogans like Chalta hai, nahi chalega. Bring pride of work in every single task that you do, and every person who does it have a common purpose. Anybody working in a real estate company, when you ask them what they do, somebody will say, I'm a fitter, I'm a carpenter, I'm a mason, or I'm in planning, I'm in quality. And nobody will ever say that, you know what, I'm helping people achieve their dream. Because right from the watchman to the MD of a real estate company is doing nothing but help people achieve their dream. And in the bargain, they are making profits. What's wrong with that? The purpose of every business is to make a profit. But if I can do it in an ethical manner by giving a superlative world-class product which will last for years and appreciate over the lifetime of a person, I think that's really a winning formula. And for every person who works in an organization, if he believes that he's part of this larger picture, he will always do what is right, not only for his function, not only to achieve his KRAs, but what is right for the customer. We are the custodians of the customer. I think that should be stamped on our foreheads.
That was really great, what you said. There is actually so much of construction, so much of activity happening in the country. And it's really quality is an attitude. And it's important, like you said, to put the best version of ourselves forward. And I really liked also, it's really simple, of course, what you said, that quality is nothing but doing it right the very first time. So you don't have to keep revisiting and tweaking it again and again. Mr. Coelho, we spoke about multitude of things, developing and skilling the entire ecosystem. That was a really very pertinent, important point. And collaborations, of course, industry and the academia, and between industries as well for technology, world class technology to kind of percolate down to every level. So we are somehow, as a country, at par. In terms of everything. And then when somebody says that this product or a particular thing is made in India, it will be synonymous with quality. So it was a wonderful conversation, Mr. Coelho. Thank you so much for being with us.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for this great initiative, and I hope that this will be, I think an initiative which will continue, and you'll get some of the best minds together. Because, as I said, uh, we need to reach out. There are plenty of people there who need to be touched, who need to get the right mindset, the right attitude, and I think the people on this forum who are going to be present are going to play a key role in driving this. So thank you so much.